Hi, I'm Nan, and today I decided I wanted to redraw some old fan art, and kind of use it as an excuse to like share things I've learned about art and how to make your art just a smidge a little bit better, right? Like it's not like I've improved light years since I drew these, but I've learned a lot of stuff that have made it easier to redraw them sort of the way that I envisioned them in my brain at the time that I drew them. So this first piece is from 2014. It's Ichigo Kurosaki wearing, I don't know, it's some shitty Zazzle shirt that I saw back then that I thought was so fucking funny because 2014 humor was just, the way that it was. And the thing about this original piece is it's not terrible, but there's like a lot immediately wrong with it when you look at it. First of all, the size. Why is it so tiny? I drew it tiny as shit. It's like the canvas I think was like 700 something pixels tall. If you draw really small, that immediately makes it harder to make your work better because you're gonna see every little tiny mistake like blown up on a macro scale, especially with like regards to line quality and stuff. So my first tip is draw bigger. My second tip, he looks really unbalanced, right? Because I didn't think about the entirety of the pose. And what I mean by that is I didn't really imagine what the lower half of this pose was meant to look like what his legs would be doing, right? If I extended the canvas. I didn't imagine all of that. And that kind of led to him looking like he's about to topple over. So that's another thing I wanted to change. Immediately just tilt it, make the pose look a little bit more naturalistic. I also think that the posing in general is just pretty stiff. And one of the reasons that I personally think, is because I, at the time, wasn't really conscious of envisioning things three-dimensionally, which, that sounds pretentious, but what I mean by that is I didn't think of, characters that I was drawing as three-dimensional objects that I'm portraying in 2D, right? I just thought, that's a 2D object. So when I came up with poses, I was not taking the pose and then rotating it. I was more just rotating the different pieces and parts of the anatomy, if that makes sense. So he looks very flat because his body is turned sort of 3/4, but then that arm that's behind his head is turned completely straight on view, and that doesn't really look right, and it also looks really stiff. It also leads to a lot of blank space on the canvas that didn't really need to be there, so I just kind of wanted to adjust the pose and make it a little bit more natural, right? I also kind of made his body pose gesture, a little bit better, and just overall looser, right? A little less, I don't know, stiff. So that's the things regarding posing, right? Now, some other improvements that I wanted to make are, I'm working on this right now, but in regards to fan art especially, you want to really pay attention to the shapes that the original illustrator uses to portray their characters, right? Because, yes, style changes. My art style is not Taito Kubo's art style. There's gonna be differences in stylistic flourishes, but the general shapes of Ichigo's let's say eyes and face and jaw and nose and hair are gonna be relatively consistent. It's just how I draw those shapes that differ. That's what makes it a style difference. And with the original art, it sort of looks like Ichigo. I think I tried my best at the time, but I wasn't very good at drawing hair especially, and in particular spiky anime hair. And I think that really shows when you look at the original because it's kind of scraggly. He looks like a drowned rat. It's not very appealing, in the way that Taito Kubo's art is appealing. And I was really trying to make it look like Taito Kubo's art because you know, that's like my art idol. I mean, I have beef with the guy. He's like the fucking J.K. Rowling of mangaka in the sense that he retcons everything afterwards and spends like ages talking about what kind of eggs his characters like eating but won't fucking work on the Hell arc. Anyway, going on a whole tangent, sorry. But all that to say, I wanted to pay closer attention to the actual shapes of like the hair and eyes and jaw and stuff this time around. Having said that, oh my god, I was struggling drawing his hair. His hair is so difficult because to me it doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't come from one clear part. Like, his bangs come from a different place than like the back of his hair, and it doesn't mentally work out for me, but I tried my best. I think I eventually got it close enough where it's like, okay, yeah, I guess that looks like Ichigo. At least a little bit more than my first pass. I think at the time I was drawing him as like a 15-year-old. I don't think I was doing like the Fullbring arc Ichigo yet. I think he existed though, which is crazy to think about because I'm just like processing. Yeah, I drew the original in 2014. I gotta cut myself off before I start info dumping about Bleach, but needless to say, the manga was not even finished by this point. It's crazy to think about, and it's also crazy to think I've been a fan for 18 years. That's insane, especially, you know, given all the problems I have with the series. It's like a love-hate relationship. I fucking hate Bleach, and I love it more than like life itself. I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, you know, it's autistic hyperfixation stuff. But yeah, so adjusted how I drew the face and the hair, tried to make it fit more, you know, it's in my style still, very clearly, but I also think it looks a lot more true to character than the original. I wanted to keep this as a sketch, by the way. You know, I didn't want to fully finish it because the original wasn't fully finished. But I also wanted to make my lines a little bit cleaner, a little bit more clear, crisp, and stuff like that to see what I was trying to go for. I also wanted to make some adjustments to the way that I drew Ichigo's body. The original piece, I think I made his head a little bit too big, his body a little bit too scrawny, but also like weirdly chunky. I don't know how else to explain it, but Kubo's art style is like so lanky, like scraggly wet cat lanky. It's interesting choice, but I think it works really well. It also makes his art look so much more fluid because every character looks like a little melting beanpole. I can't really draw like that. I always end up adding too much bulk and heft and stuff like that. And I just love muscles and drawing bodies and stuff, which is why I drew the entire body underneath. I don't know why I do that, but I love drawing torsos, okay? Don't come at me. But I wanted to still keep in mind, like, Ichigo's proportions a little bit more closely, I guess, because he's muscular-ish, but he's not too muscular, and then also his shoulders are pretty broad in comparison to, like, his waist and, like, basically, I didn't pay attention to all of that when I was drawing the initial piece. I just kind of drew a body and then was like, good. But body type is also very important for keeping fan art sort of looking close to the original, right? If that's what you're going for. I'm not the type of person that thinks you have to stay completely 100% to the original source material. I don't care, it's fan art, you should draw whatever the fuck you want to draw. But if you're trying to go for something that looks like the character, you know, as close as possible, keep in mind that stuff. Don't just go with your, you know, gut feeling about style. Don't just go with what's the comfort zone for you, if that makes sense. Because the comfort zone for me is beefy baras, or like twiggy twinks, you know? So like trying to find that in between is something to pay attention to when drawing characters that aren't my own. Something else to keep in mind that you can see I paid a lot more attention to here is the folds of the shirt and the clothing. I feel like I've improved at that a lot, but it's really important to get like the draping looking like fabric because that adds to the three-dimensionality of it. In the original piece, I kind of only added like 2 folds, and I think the reason that I did that is probably because I knew I was going to put the text on the shirt and I didn't know how to make it bend around like any folds at the time, which poor choice on my part, but you know, that's what learning's about. But yeah, I wanted to make sure that the clothing had more wrinkles, looked more like fabric rather than just like solid chunks. I think that also adds to some of the posing and the character of the piece, and that's why it's kind of important to keep that in mind. It's hard to learn folds and stuff like that. That's something that I'm still working on, but I think once you unlock, you know, it in your brain, it becomes a lot more natural and easy, and you don't have to look up references all the time. And yeah, it's nice. But yeah, those are some of the things I think I paid the most attention to this time. So again, we've got shapes, you know, of the character in canon, translating those to my own style more consistently, I guess, so that it's more clear who I'm drawing or trying to draw. Keeping in mind anatomy, proportions, posing, body type, just making the character look more like how the character looks in canon. Really helps elevate fan art usually. And yeah. And then just because I wanted to sort of make it a little bit less boring, I went in and added just flat tone in grayscale. Just, you know, again, make it look less boring. I don't know. I have like a hard time just posting my sketches completely unlike colored or anything like that, so I at least like to add some tone, because otherwise I get all self-conscious. I don't know. Whatever. You know, art shit. Yeah, then I decided to add the text. I initially handwrote it, and then I was like, this looks like ass. Might as well make it look like more ass with digital text, just to get it to, I don't know, look less shitty. I'm really good at explaining stuff. Anyway, yeah, so I finished this piece up, and I think the improvement is very much noticeable, and I think those tips can really help and be applied to like a lot of different types of pieces. But in this case, those are things that I learned specifically within these last like 3 years or so that really kind of elevate shitty art like my own. And just things to keep in mind while drawing, especially drawing fan art. And then just side note, you know, tangent while I wait for the footage to finish, because I'm kind of going off the cuff here. I'm so pumped for Thousand Year Blood War, like, to finish. I still can't believe that they decided to adapt that, like, all that time later, because I think the manga ended in, like, 2016. And I just was like flabbergasted, and then it looks so good. I like cried, you know. I felt so let down by the anime in so many ways, but then to see this adaptation, I'm like, oh, it's crazy. My little stupid otaku heart, it's going insane. So yeah, and I recently got my boyfriend into watching it with me. We're rewatching the OG series, so I just got Bleach on the brain, and yeah. Anyway, before and after, you can see the differences. It's a lot more naturalistic, and I like it a lot better now with the redraw. And yeah, that's all we got for this speed paint anyway. I don't know, not for the day. But I've got, you know, the sped up in-app time-lapse thing for Clip Studio going on right here. And yeah, you can sort of see it all without any moving and flipping and stuff if you'd like. And then after that's done, I've got another redraw. Yippee! And now for this second piece, I'm redrawing this headshot I drew of Killua from Hunter x Hunter in 2019. The original headshot isn't too bad. When you look at it, it looks nice and clean, looks very sharp. It's not too off-model for him, but there's definitely a lot of ways that it could be better, right? I think I drew his face a little bit too realistically proportioned, I guess, if that makes sense, to the point that he doesn't really look like a child as much anymore, and that was kind of the goal with this because it's supposed to be earlier series Killua. That being said, I decided to change that later on, which you'll see why. But another thing that I noticed about the original, it looks, it's nice that I put the hand in there for the posing. I think that was good of me to do. I didn't just go with a boring old bust. I put at least a hand in there. But it still looks pretty stiff because of the way that I drew the pose. His shoulders are straight. Like, I didn't do any sort of, intersecting lines or angles or anything like that. It was all just kind of parallel. The line work is also really stiff too. It's all like one solid width. And while I did color the line work, which was rare for me, and it still is, it's not really doing it, right? And I think the shading also does not help. Cell shading can be great, but the way that I cell shaded was not great because I didn't, again, picture the three-dimensionality of it, right? And that's the same with a lot of the elements of the pose and the face and everything too. I think I didn't pay attention to the fact that like these shapes are supposed to be three-dimensional. And so yeah, with this redraw, the things that I wanted to keep in mind are 1, the line work, 2, the shading, and 3, the general proportions of making it feel more like the character. So, the first thing is I made his eyes a lot bigger, and I also made them lower down on his face. I wanted to basically make his face on like the lower half of his head, if that makes sense, because that adds to the childlike proportions. Feels more like Killua, he's like a kid, and like his face is like half of his head, like the lower half. So I also wanted to get the shape of his hair just a little bit more true to like the canon. I didn't do a bad job the first time. I think the shape of the hair was pretty good on my part, but yeah, just some changes. The shape of his face, I also wanted to make a lot more sharp and pointy because that's more Killua-like. He's a very sharp and pointy tsundere character with like a heart of gold. That's him as a character. So keep that all consistent. I also wanted to keep the three-dimensionality of the pose in mind a little bit more. So like with the hand, making sure it looks like it's in 3 dimensions, and with the face, like with the placement of the nose and the nose bridge and the eyes. Just everything, I wanted it to feel a little bit more three-dimensional. It's hard to explain what I mean by that, but if you know what I'm talking about, you'll get it. The next thing I was working on was the line work, which I wanted to have more variation, both in the width of the lines, and then also in like the texture, if that makes sense. I feel like the original line art was very smooth all over no matter what I was doing the line work for. But this time I wanted to keep in mind, like, I'm drawing different things like hair and skin and eyelashes and clothes. So the way that I'm doing the line work kind of changes depending on the surface of the thing that I'm drawing. It sounds so pretentious. I hate talking like an artist. I'm not pretentious, I promise. But this stuff is important for getting the line work to feel less, slippery, less plastic, I guess. But yeah, I wanted to put more detail in the face as well because the face is the main draw when you're drawing a bust. And so I thought it was important to put more detail in his eyes and make them a little bit prettier, a lot more interesting to look at. So yeah, keeping in mind how to make line work look more interesting, I guess. I feel like I've gotten a lot better with drawing line work in the past couple of years. And by that, I don't really mean my quality of line work. I don't know if that's changed all that much or drastically or anything, but more that I'm a little bit more consistent with it. I don't have to rotate my canvas as much. My line placement is usually where I intend for it to go on like the first or second try. I don't have to consistently undo and redo and undo and redo, which is nice. It's helpful to get better at line art because that makes the process a lot less painful. I really rely on line work too because I'm lazy, and flat coloring is like my least favorite part of art because it's just so fucking boring, and so I hate when I have to use like a pen tool to flat color. I just really love the bucket tool more than anything. And so that's why I kind of got good at line art. It's because I'm not a painter. I'm not a painting type. I've always relied on cell shading. I prefer it. And it's a lot easier to do that when you have line art. That being said, I have been relying a lot more on softer brushes for my line art in recent, times. I'd say like within the last year or two. I more often than not just use the thin gouache brush, like the default one that comes in Clip Studio Paint. But for this piece, I wanted to use a harder brush, and one with texture too, because I think it looks nicer. But I wanted to use it in this piece specifically because the original had issues that I found with the line art. So I wanted to redo line work that was solid again, but do it better, if that makes sense. So just to showcase improvement and like the importance of the things that I'm saying in regards to making art look a little bit better. This hand, I changed up quite a bit, not in the sense of posing or anything, but more in the sense of making it a little bit slimmer, bonier, more jagged and stuff. One, for character reasons, Killua's hands, like, they are pretty muscular, I guess, if that makes sense, because he can sharpen his nails or whatever, and then they get really veiny and gross and whatever, and he uses them to kill people. It's a character thing. But also because hands just generally look a lot more appealing when you draw them kind of scrunkly looking, and you can get away with it more with hands because they're just naturally pretty scrunkly. I feel like a lot of people hate drawing hands, but I love it because they're characters in and of themselves, and you can get you have a lot of room to fuck up on hands without people noticing, as long as you get all the fingers in there and the general shapes. So it's kind of nice. I don't know. That's my 2 cents. I like drawing hands. Whatever. I'm a freak. I'm a weirdo. I don't fit in. Have you ever seen me without the stupid hat? Anyway, flat coloring time. I hate doing the flat colors. It's so boring. It's like the one part of art that doesn't have any sort of expression involved. You're just putting down a base to then add stuff to, so it's boring as fuck. I know some people find it relaxing, but for me, I'm like, no, this is hell. Just get it over with. Use the bucket tool. Of course, I can't use the bucket tool because I need the underneath to be colored, and I have to go back in with the pen tool anyway because I'm gonna use some layer modes for the line work later to get them to color correctly. It's just hell on earth. I hate my stupid Baka life, but whatever. Working on the flat coloring and such. So something I decided to do very differently this time is I decided to change up the lighting situation that I had going on, right? Because the original was just kind of a plain bust. And yes, his hands sort of make sense given that that's what he does when he like sharpens his nails or whatever. But I thought it would be more interesting if I made the lighting a character in and of itself. And by that I mean Killua, no spoilers or anything, but like one of Killua's abilities later on involves lightning, and I thought that would give me a chance to do really interesting lighting with this piece, right? So I could have gone 2 ways. I could have done just like straight down, same light source as the original shading, which would have been fine. It would have been completely passable and stuff, but it just would have been a lot more boring because it's kind of like, what's the point of drawing the bust if I'm not going to make it interesting? So, yeah, I kind of went for like a lighting situation. So I drew lightning in between his fingers, just like using layer modes to add glow, and then add like a white, add glow layer on top, lightning effect, blah, blah, blah. And from that lightning, I made that my light source for the piece. So I was able to do really dynamic, glowy lighting on like the bust and from an interesting angle for like a light source and stuff. And that's like yet another way to make a piece better, I guess. Well, not better, right? It's all subjective, whatever you think is better. The top-down lighting isn't bad or anything like that. It's just for my sensibilities, I'm like, that just seems so boring. Like, why he's just standing there, it's a bust, whatever. I'm not even gonna put that much effort into anything because I'm an impatient bitch, and if I take more than 2 hours on a piece, I'll just kill myself. But yeah, no, I figured, okay, dynamic lighting, right? Because here's another thing. Dynamic lighting is actually surprisingly very easy to learn how to do because you have a lot more leeway for fucking up and people not noticing. Because it's so much more flashy, right? And you get to rely on layer modes to do most of the heavy lifting for you in most art programs. And it's not that difficult to learn. You just pay attention to the light source, and it's, yeah, I don't know, it was one of the first things that made me feel like, wow, my art's really leveling up, is when I learned how to do dynamic lighting. It's, yeah, it seems like it should be hard, right? Because it seems so fancy and so intense, but when you're using layer modes and stuff, it's like really, I'm not shitting you, just try it out. Just draw some simple thing and give it dynamic lighting. I promise you, you're gonna feel like you've leveled up, like, super fast. But yeah, I figure, you know, why not add to the characterization of the fan art with the lighting, because we're adding, you know, the lightning in between his fingers, which is like a canonical power kind of thing going on. And yeah, if easy way to level it up. I feel like it looks infinitely better now than the original, and it's also just cool. You know, I love cool anime bullshit as much as the next guy. But yeah, I started by doing like an add glow layer for like the actual light source itself, like on top of a multiply layer of like a blue. And then under that I added like ambient occlusion, or, you know, fancy term or whatever, but I just added more shading underneath the multiply layer just to add more detail and make it look a little bit more complete. I didn't do it very intensely. I didn't really pay that much attention to, like, you know, what realistically would have shadows or not, but just keeping in mind sort of like what makes it look a little bit more three-dimensional. Because again, that three-dimensionality is really, really helpful for leveling your art up, or like making it look a lot more pro. And it's not a skill that's easy to learn. It comes after a lot of observation, a lot of rotating objects in your mind, and whatever the fuck. But I'm a firm believer in that art practice and learning and stuff like that doesn't have to be boring or tedious, or like it doesn't have to be a study session. Just draw something over and over again. I learned how to do all this shit. The reason I leveled up like this is from drawing the same character like 250 times. I shit you not. Like, I got huge hyperfixation on a VTuber, and I've drawn him a gajillion times, and that's why I'm able to draw better now, is because I practice new shit. And yeah, you just have to pick up the pen and draw. You'll get better. You just have to keep at it. You have to not give up and stop thinking that your art's ugly. Just get over it. Use it as a learning experience every time, and try something new. You know, more often. Try new stuff, and watch other people draw. Look at other art. Figure out what you can learn. That's it. That's the key, baby. That's how you evolve. I still have a long way to go, but, you know, I feel like less, I don't know, discouraged than ever now, because I've seen the improvements I was able to make, and I hope that, you know, other people can get encouraged in their own ways. I don't know. I'm just talking out of my ass, man. I'm terrible at recording voiceovers. I'm terrible at speaking to begin with, but then to, like, put me on the spot to explain literally any of the thoughts that ever go through my head, oh my god, it's hell. I'm stupid, okay? Anyway, I was fucking around with his hair a bunch, and then I hated what I did, and I erased most of it, and it doesn't matter. Point being, it's done. It's redone. It looks better now, and yippee! Wahoo! Finish up! Finish! God fuck. Okay, alright. We're done with the layer mode. Stop! Layer modes, okay. Chromatic aberration, fucking Gaussian blur, fixes everything, makes everything look pro. There we go. We're all done. Fuck. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. If you learned something, that's awesome. If you didn't learn anything, that's cool too. Just pick up the pencil and draw. Stop putting shit into AI generators. Just draw. Learn how to draw. You'll do it. You can do it. I promise you can do it. I took a long ass time. You'll probably take a lot quicker, but you can do it. I believe in you. Okay, Killua believes in you. Ichigo believes in you. We all believe in you. You can do it. Yippee! Okay, bye.